Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. So um, this is kind of being long delayed. I think I was gonna make this video, months ago, and then just with everything that's been happening and all the distractions, I never got around to it. So I apologize for that. But for the for the few people who are interested in stuff like this, I hopefully you will find it worth the wait. I guess one of the reasons I've been delaying so much is because it's just so difficult to work with these things. They're huge, they're heavy, and it's just a lot of work to actually try to do anything with them, like trying to move them, how you're gonna get the shots. I don't have like this, private room or studio with nice lighting or the right type of table. I just put this little black tri-color, like this black, like size project background to block as much of the kitchen as possible. But these things are so massive, it's just very difficult logistically to kind of proceed. And so when that happens, you just get lazy and you basically, delay what you're supposed to do. So the purpose of this video is to sort of do a comparison of the Hulk transformations. The last video review I did of the XM Studios Hulk transformation, I gave a little background, which is that they had actually had a competition for design, and that this was ultimately what they chose. And this was one of the concepts that didn't quite make it, but it was produced via a custom group, and I bought that as well. So being someone who owns both, it's sort of this situation where I have the opportunity to kind of compare and contrast and give my thoughts. I have separate reviews for each of these, which you can obviously check up. So this is more of a comparison and sort of the pros and cons of each and which one I prefer. So I guess I'll just start with the custom Hulk transformation. I think that it's pretty clear when you actually look at this piece why this was never actually truly produced. It was just a little bit too huge, too ambitious, and too expensive, and too prone to breakage, I think, for the price point that XM Studios was comfortable with and that their business model suggested could be fairly, fairly marketed. And here, the thing that I really like about this statue is the ambition of the base. So all of these green tendrils, which are supposed to give you the impression of gamma radiation, and sort of the swirling of the gamma radiation, is all clear green resin, and it's very good quality. It's very beautifully done, and huge, and putting it together was very complicated. So this is, in my opinion, clearly the better base, the more ambitious base. The concept is a little bit odd because when you look at Bruce, it looks like what caused the transformation comes out of a test tube. It's almost like maybe poison gas or something like that. But I thought that it was really radiation that was the cause. But here, you kind of get almost a Jekyll and Hyde like kind of vibe here, But I think the idea is that you had an accident. The green is already spilled. You can see it here on the base, and it led to this this gas, which then caused him to transform. So it's more of a lab experiment gone wrong. But in my mind, I still think that the green should be more representative of the gamma radiation. And so who knows, maybe it's a combination of both the radiation and the gas. but I definitely love the base there. And again, I like the clear resin, all the little tiny details of the spill test tubes on the bottom, very, very nice. I like the fact that for this transformation, you get to see the middle kind of look. So almost all of the other transformations that XM Studios was deciding was just a simple before and after. So I think the fact that you start off with Bruce and then you get to see this in between, like this intermediary picture before he becomes, the Hulk. I really like that because again, it sort of shows that transformation. And of course, that's a lot of work. I mean, you have to basically sculpt an entirely new statue, entirely new character. You have to think about it. It has to be like, in between the Hulk and the human being. But I think it adds a lot, again, to the concept and the design of the overall piece to have that, right? So this is, again, one of the main advantages. Now, when you compare that to the XM Studios Hulk, again, you're missing a statue in the middle, and the base is a lot more simple. It does have real wires, which I talked about in my review. You can see right here, you can actually see the copper, for instance, and all that. So that's really nice, but if you look, it's just the floor of the laboratory. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It does not have the ambition of the custom piece, right? But aside from that, I do prefer this version in almost every way. I think that the Bruce banner, especially when you look at the quality, when you look at the sculpt of Bruce's face, and you look at this, and you compare it to this, it's really, there's no comparison. So look, Bruce compared to Bruce, right? So there's like just this gigantic chasm of realism and detail and quality between this statue, and just look at again the body motion, the cape flowing, the way he's gripping his hands. Basically, this version here, it looks kind of almost like a cartoon compared to to this one, right? So the Bruce blows the other Bruce away, and I do prefer the anatomy of this Hulk quite a bit more. In terms of the shading or the color scheme, that's just a matter of personal preference. Some people like this type of green, others prefer this green, and there's many different shades in between. I don't care as much about the green, but I feel like when you're looking at the Hulk, again, I feel like this is, to me, much more refined, realistic anatomy. There's just more detail. And I would liken this to sort of a competition where you're judging, for instance, bodybuilders, and they judge bodybuilders based on a lot of things, based on the definition of their muscle, based on symmetry. I'm not a bodybuilding fan, and I don't follow this obsessively, but YouTube, that great fountain of knowledge of all things. I've checked up a few YouTube videos about different bodybuilders and how they're exercising or how they're eating, just in the middle of the night, nothing to do. That YouTube algorithm gets you sometimes, and sometimes weird stuff pops up on the recommended list, and you do take a look. And so I just feel like if I was a judge in a bodybuilding competition, I would give the nod to this musculature, this physique. It just seems more natural, more detailed. It just seems better to me. Okay, so, and again, people have different opinions, but this is sort of one of my favorite views, right, of his body. So just look at that muscle definition, and then when you compare it to this, it's just very different. Now, this Hulk, by the way, is not a bad Hulk by any stretch of the imagination. I really like him. He's big, he's solid. He's certainly not an embarrassment. I love the expression. You can see the tendons and the muscles of the neck just sort of, standing out as he's yelling. It's a great expression. And you can, you definitely see, again, nice anatomy. You feel the power of the Hulk. This is a good Hulk statue. But when you compare this sort of very simplistic anatomy, you're looking at the six-pack, the rectus abdomini muscles, the pecs, triceps, biceps, the serratus anterior muscles, all of these, muscle groups. And then it just feels kind of a bit more simple, right? Again, in a sense, cartoony. Big, strong, nice, but still basic, right? Very basic. And then when you compare this type of anatomy with this anatomy, I think, again, the best analogy is if you were judging bodybuilding, there's no way you would give the prize to this over that. There's just more definition, more detail. It just feels like it's a better sculpt, and I also, the paint, I actually feel is a lot closer than you would think. XM Studios was known for having some of the best factory or production paint jobs on the market, and they still do. And this is actually a very good paint job. I mean, I don't have any complaints, but I think what's interesting is that this is a custom paint job in the factory. They didn't make a lot of these. And the paint here I do feel is rather flat. It's a little bit uninspired. Taking a look here, trying to peek in from way under. He's looking way down. But this is not a whole lot worse than the XM paint job. I mean, I think the XM paint job is better. There's more shading, there's more detail. But it's not like it completely destroys the other paint job. I mean, that paint job is actually solid. If we give this, like, I don't know, like a 6 out of 10, this would be like maybe an 8, 7 or 8. So I feel like the paint is not, hugely different. If you look at the purple pants, for instance, here, and you just kind of take a look, and then you compare it to, the lighter shade of purple maybe here. Again, it's not like this version is like embarrassing itself or anything like that. It's serviceable. The XM version is just a bit better, which in a way is kind of disappointing because you would think that a custom piece maybe should have a better paint job than a mass market one. I mean, remember, they made 1,000 of these guys. And I don't know if they made even 30 of these. So that's something to think about. One other thing about the base, by the way, that I neglected is that it does light up. But unfortunately, that advantage is sort of tempered by the fact that over the years that I've owned this piece, the lights stopped working. And so you can't give brownie points for a light up base when it's not able to light up after a few years and it gives out. So that is a little bit disappointing, and is one of the arguments for maybe not having as many light up functions if they're not needed because of this type of danger. And I do see it with a little bit of my Iron Man collectibles. You just sort of have to give up on it because, you have to kind of understand that when you buy, for instance, Iron Man statues, the light up is kind of an integral part of the character, but the risk is unavoidable that eventually a certain percentage of your collectibles with light ups are going to fail over time. This is the same problem with Terminator statues, etc. Any type of statues that incorporate light. So I've given so much thoughts on both statues individually. And this comparison is just kind of like a unique opportunity to have both of them side by side. I think there's very few people who have both of these. I know there's quite a few who has the XM, but this is kind of an older and more rare piece. And so I just wanted to kind of take the opportunity to show them side by side. They're basically the same size, believe it or not. I think the Hulk in XM Studios is a little bit bigger in scale, just a tiny touch. But they're comparable size, comparable weight. The presence is there regardless. But again, in terms of the sculpt quality in terms of Bruce Banner. I think that the XM version is, in my opinion, the one to own, the superior one by far. But you can't knock the majesty and the ambition and the presence of this. This is still an amazing transformation, transformation statue. It's just that this one, because of the quality of the individual pieces, the quality of the banner and the Hulk, this is the definitive version for me. So hope that was interesting, and hope while I was moving back and forth and sort of comparing the two, you kind of got an idea of what the two look like side by side. So there you go. And I'm going to be putting these away. And so I hope, again, you enjoy this. Until next time, do take care.